to Chronic Combat Conversations, a live look at our best bets, picks, and predictions for every UFC event. With your hosts, TB Scouting MMA and
The Guru back again for UFC Vegas 53. Rob Font versus Marlon Chito Vera, also known as UFC on ESPN 35. Man, this fight is exciting. Holy moly. It could decide, if you ask one guy, I guess, it could decide who the next title challenger in the division is. But otherwise, it's still a very, very important fight for the division. Has to happen, right? 5 versus 8, I believe. Not that those rankings mean too much. But yeah, 5 versus, right? They juice those ratings up sometimes. But anyway, it's 5 versus 8. That's a good-ass fight. And we got a couple other good ones, right? We got the return of the immortal Andre Arlovsky facing for his second co-main event now, Mr. Jake Collier. That's a fucking that's something. That's a fight they put together. That's a contract that got signed.
I was like, were you waiting for the applause for it? Because not coming, sir.
No, probably not. Listen, I'm excited to see Andre Feely back in there again. He was dominating Daniel Pineda before that eye poke. Alexander Romanov got rebooked, officially the largest favorite in UFC history, minus 2,000. Something where I'm sure we'll talk at least a little bit about, and a few debuting guys that I'm actually excited to see. So, dude, I didn't even introduce our guest.
Yeah, how dare you? Come on,
what
Guru.
The fuck?
What are you doing?
You know what it was? I was frazzled because I saw you on your phone, and I don't know what's wrong with me. I got my guy, Black Jordan Breen, a.k.a. man, Schwan Humes.
Let's go.
What's going on, buddy? Good to see you, man.
Not much, man. I've been juggling a lot. I got the basketball thing where I'm training kids. I have random people from Twitter, like MMA fighters from like Britain and England. They'll send me videos. They're like, hey, can you break this down for me? And random people from the United States and the people who do amateur boxing. And I'm like, usually I do it for favors because I'm just like trying to be nice. But it's getting to the point where I'm going to be like, dude, y'all going to start paying me for this. Because like you send me 1 or 2 videos, that's cool. But now we're in the like 3rd, 4th fight you've had, and you're sending me stuff, and ain't nobody mentioning my name on these wins, but people keep asking me for tips, and that's what I'm seeing. I'm like, either we got to get some money, and you cannot mention me, or you got to mention me, or there's got to be a fair exchange here, because breaking down film it's not easy just doing it for a show purpose. It is definitely not easy doing it for the actual purpose of a competition.
I got your handle now, dude. You're MMA's Quentin Miller, man. You're MMA's ghostwriter. We see you out here.
Oh yeah,
we at Chronic Combat Conversations, we see you, and that's why we are so happy to have you on short notice, up 2 weight classes. Thanks so much for stepping in, buddy.
Really it's a pleasure, man. You guys have always done well. I like your show. You've always supported anything I've done, and y'all are great to talk to. You're just great people. So anytime I can help out, or somebody drops out, or you need me, just let me know. I'll move some stuff around for you.
We always need you, Schwan, not just when somebody drops out. So thanks so much for tuning in.
I appreciate that.
And anybody here, thanks for tuning in.
Oh, wait a minute before we get going.
Yeah, please.
Yes. I need to highlight, like everybody thinks MMA is such a big sport and it's so well ran. I need to highlight something. Now, we all know Juliana Pena fought Amanda Nunes, and she beat her. And one person has been calling this result for the past 2 years relentlessly. That would be me. Now imagine if there was a huge upset in the Super Bowl or the NBA Finals or even a boxing fight, and somebody systematically called this upset years ago, broke it down completely
over and over,
kept doing it.
I must have missed that one. I didn't hear that one. I wish I would have.
Oh no, I seen it.
I just
why didn't you say anything, TB? That's fucked.
Oh, so I actually had a dream and I was going to bet on it because my mom always tells me to bet, and I forgot to call her. I was going to tell her to put $500 down. I didn't mention this to her now because she would kill me. A lot of money. But if you had had somebody go that in depth and break it down, whenever that event happened and the result came out, everybody in that sport would have came to that person and been like, how did you see this? Instead, I got to watch a bunch of people who said Juliana Pena had no chance in hell do a 180. And well, yeah, now that you look at it, there was major slippage in Nunes' game and her approach. I'm like, where the hell is this coming from? Where the hell is this coming from? You didn't say this before the fight.
So consistently all time, Schwan Humes at Black Jordan Breen. Make sure you're following that Twitter because this guy, when it comes to, I want to say any MMA breakdown, but especially the WMMA breakdowns, I don't think you get a better voice in the community with a consistent opinion like he does. He was calling the physicality. He called the chin. He called the offensive wrestling pace. I saw it out there, man. And like, listen, when it comes time to cash those checks, it's like, geez, I don't know too many people that were cashing that one. So it's like, Schwan, that's a big player there, my friend.
I don't know why they mess with me. My upset reputation is I picked Rose over Joanna. I said first round. I picked Holm over Rousey. I said that 2 years before it happened. I said Tate over Holm. I had Pena over Nunes. I'm like, I can call this. They're like, you could have called these fights, and I keep screaming from the mountaintops. I called every single one of them. Are y'all ignoring me? Can you not see me?
Do you have Pena over Nunes again? Do you have Pena over Nunes again?
And Pena, I have to really think about that one.
Really think the surprise is gone now. That's it.
I have to really think about that. I really have to think about that
on the spot, man. Now that I put you on the spot, it's time to put you on the spot about this week's main event. Rob Font, Marlon Chito Vera, man. TB, what are you seeing here?
Oh man. Well, first off, we got Rob Font at -140 and Marlon Chito Vera plus 120. This fight, I mean, when I'm breaking it down here, whoo, I mean, this one's gonna be a good one. You got Rob Font used to having a bit of a reach advantage. He's only got 1.5 inches here. So with a guy that loves playing heavy on that front foot with his boxing approach, he loves using that jab to set it up. And Chito Vera loves throwing kicks. I mean, more so than even, strikes to the head. He's throwing those front kicks. He's throwing the leg kicks. Chito Vera, you're going to have an open target there. So, Font, the question is, can you keep that pace up for 25 minutes against a guy like Vera, where we've seen him come alive as the fight goes on? But, wow, yeah, I mean, ultimately, I see this fight as just about even, or even so leaning in the direction of Vera. I just don't think that Font is going to have the same type of reach advantage that he's used to, nor is he going to have the size or physicality advantage that Chito Vera is definitely going to bring to the table. I think Vera's got an advantage in the grappling department. I do think Font is a little bit crisper of a boxer, but as an overall striker and setting an overall pace over the course of a fight, because you're not finishing Chito Vera. That's it. So, right. Rob Font, are you going to win a 5-round decision over a guy that's only going to build on you as it goes? And man, once he starts clinching up, throwing those elbows, start working in the grappling, I just see, Chito Vera pulling away with this thing or being able to land a finish somewhere along the way, because we've seen some people have some success in the grappling against Rob Font. Even Marlon Moraes lands a couple takedowns early. So listen, if Chito Vera decides to take it to that department, I think he'll have some success, but I think he might lose the first round or two here, and you might even get more value than that plus 120.
Live betting opportunity.
It is, but you know what? That's not what we do with Chronic Combat. You got to get your shit on Bet MMA Tips. The line's gone back to plus 120 here. I'm liking it. I hesitate to make this like the dog of the day, but at the end of it, it's like a guy like Chito Vera, and you're getting him. I really think this fight should be at least even, if not Chito Vera, as the -140 to -150 favors. So placing a bet, that's where I'm at. Guru, where are you at?
I'm surprised to hear that the line dipped back towards Font. Is he really still back? Yeah, he is back to plus 120. That is interesting to see. He had been at plus 110 earlier today. Regardless, I think that it's very interesting especially when you look at the stats here, right? Rob Font is going to need a ton of pace and pressure to beat Marlon Chito Vera, right? And Rob is not necessarily a finisher by any right, and he's got his finish over Marlon Moraes, who is just recently retired because he can't stop getting knocked out. Good luck to you, buddy. I hope he's got can set up a gym and make his money. He had a respectable career, man. Anyway, his finish is over Thomas Almeida and Douglas Silva de Andrade with a submission. George Roop was probably at the end of his rope there. Like I said, not a finisher. So when you're in a fight, you're going to take damage. And what we've seen from Rob Font is that he's very heavy on that lead leg. And he's basically all legs anyway, and they're very skinny. So Marlon, with his variety of leg attacks that he brutalized Sean O'Malley with and countless others, he's going to punish that leg, and he's going to be the one eventually putting the pressure on Font as that fight goes on. And I just don't know how Font's gonna be able to control Vera. Like, it's gonna have to be that more Frankie Edgar style where Marlon just doesn't get up. But we've also seen that Vera just throw crazy slicing elbows. Like, he doesn't just sit there quietly. So, I don't see where Rob steals 3 rounds. And I mean, that is how he wins. He has to steal 3-4 rounds. That is the way that I see him winning if he does win. Otherwise, I don't see him getting a finish, whereas I see Marlon winning a decision or getting a finish. So I have a guy that has more paths to victory at dog odds. So I had laid money on him because I thought the line was going to keep sliding. So I was kind of surprised. Maybe it will again. But I bet him at like plus 116. So.
All right. Well, Schwan, what are you thinking here?
My concern for this fight is I'm going to make a little NBA connection. I'm going to do this repeatedly throughout this round.
I love it.
Like, you had KD versus the Celtics, right? KD individually is one of the most skilled basketball players ever, given his height, his reach, his mobility, and his footwork, his skill set. It's very hard to stop him. But if you run a good, solid defense, like you're making your reads, you're making rotations, you're sending doubles at him, one, that slows him down. But secondly, what slows him down is when you have a physical aspect of it. You can keep him from his spots, or you can push him off his spots. And even though people don't compare boxing or basketball and combat sports together, a lot of similarities are there. For you to be effective in basketball, defensively or offensively, you have to get to your spots. There's a spot where you can stop this guy. There's a spot where you can score on this guy. The main thing is, can you get to your spot smoothly and efficiently? Can you stay on your spot once you get there? That's how I see this fight. I would think Rob Font, to a certain degree, I wouldn't say he has as wide a range of skills as Vera, but in his individual skill, he's better in that than Vera is in any one of his other skills as far as mixed martial arts is combined. His boxing, his striking, his movement, his counters were probably top tier. I don't know that Chito's top tier as a wrestler, top tier as a clinch fighter, top tier as a kicker. He's effective, he's punishing, but top tier, no. So if Font can get to his spots, if Font can actually make some adjustments, because he's not going to finish. I don't think he'll finish Vera. The possibility is there because Vera's so aggressive, but Font's usually kind of a point fighter. He racks up the points. So if he leans into that, then he can make it a matter of cat and mouse. He can be backing off. He can be moving, swaying, going side to side, back and forth, exiting on angles, pivoting out, making Vera come, and just literally kept using the advantages he has in athleticism and mobility and trying to piece him up. Not to stop him per se, give him enough to kind of make him respect you, but not putting enough heat on it where you really wear yourself out or you open yourself up to exchanges. You're just trying to score the points and get the hell out of there. The problem with that is Font's not really a kind of a pick and pet guy. He's a guy who likes to come at you, stand his ground, and really throw volume and get into exchanges. But that means his legs are going to be available to be hit. His body's going to be there. And ultimately, when you're working at boxing range, it's really easy to transition into clinch range, which is what Chito Vera most likely is going to do. My concern for Chito is he has a problem with guys who are a little bit athletic and have some durability, which Font has. My issue with Font is he's not a big puncher, and the only people he's really stopped are guys who aren't known for their durability. And the only guys who are better athletes who've beaten Vera are guys who are not just better athletes, but they're very powerful as far as their power, like how they hit, which isn't Font. So I don't know that Font can scare him off, and he's going to have to fight almost a pitch perfect fight to win 5 rounds. He's got to avoid the punishment, and he's got to maintain the pace where he can keep throwing volume and keep himself out of trouble as far as extended exchanges or leg kicks. And that's something, it's kind of going against his style. So I think it's possible he could do it. I don't know that it's likely that he can execute it 100% or that he'll even really try it. So I'd have to go with you guys in that Vera has more ways to win. He seems to be the more durable, gritty fighter. And in the few times he's lost, it's been the guys who are technically better and maybe even better athletes, but they're guys who can hit. Jose Aldo, Song Yadong.
Which is not – I rewatched that fight. He did not – bro, come see me. He didn't fucking lose that fight. Like, the judges, whatever, he didn't lose that fight. I rewatched it open-minded this week. He did not lose that fight. It's like
I would agree with you. I would agree with you, but one of the separations between that is he had to respect Yadong to a certain degree just because his power. He hits very hard. He's not technical. He's easy to hit. He's easy to outwork, but he bombs on you, and he's not afraid to exchange. I don't know that Font hits as hard as him. I don't know if Font hits as hard as Lineker. I know he doesn't have Lineker's chin. I'm pretty sure he doesn't hit as hard as Aldo, nor is he as defensively sound as Aldo. No, I don't know that he can take things away. So if he can't take things away from Chito, and I think Chito can take things away from him, if you're betting, I would think you'd have to favor the guy who's A, had the better history of durability, B, had the better history as far as pace, and C, has the better history as far as the range of skills he has. He's not as good at Vera as Font at his one skill. That Font's one skill trumps everything he has as far as the effectiveness of it, but he doesn't really have technical answers for the other things that that Vera does. So I'd probably say you have to lean Vera. Just too many ways, unless he comes out completely flat. There's almost too many ways for him to win. There's too many ways he can attack, and there's really only one proven way that Font's won fights.
Super interesting. Font coming off a loss, favorite. Vera coming off a win, underdog. Just like,
well, it's probably who he beat on the way to the win. And you lose to Aldo, that's never. Nobody really looks at a loss to Aldo as something crushing. I mean, he's got what, a 91% win ratio. Like, who doesn't lose to him except for Max Holloway and Volkanovski and Conor McGregor, to be fair.
I threw a right hand upside down. It was a
left. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think when you look, it's Vera's never even been knocked down before. Font at least has been knocked down twice. So even if it does get into changing blows and tight spaces, I do think that Vera has the opportunity to create one of those desperate scrambles to get one of those submissions or get the knockout. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I would end up probably playing between 2 and 3 units on Bet MMA and throwing down about $50 myself on a Marlon Vera play. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I kind of like in terms of props. It's tough to say, honestly. I like it really is. I mean, I kind of wanted.
I just like the money line there.
Yeah, I do like the money line. I kind of wanted to say Vera 4-5 decision with like maybe a late finish, but I don't know. I feel like if Chito finishes him, he might do it mad disrespectfully and like early. So I don't know. I'm just really excited to have my money on Chito here because I think he's gonna get it done.
Yeah, it's really concerning to me that you have Font, even though she's shown skills, he's fought some guys who are suspect as far as their durability historically, and he wasn't getting stoppages over them. I mean, Cody Garbrandt's been stopped a lot, except by Rob Font.
And moving down weight.
Yeah, I mean, it's just very weird. Like, how do you not start Cody Garbrandt? I mean, one of the most, I mean, at this point, easiest guys to knock out in MMA, and you didn't stop him.
No.
You went 5 rounds with that dude? Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that.
I think
those leg kicks, man.
Hey, man, but here we go. I think we did a great job breaking down that main event. Hope you guys in here are giving us a little like on the video. Subscribe to our channel. Make sure you're following at Black Jordan Breen. Our buddy Schwan Humes joining us for the show, giving us my other favorite sport, basketball, adding in a little mix to the breakdowns. I love it. So, listen, co-main event here. You're talking a couple big boys in the heavyweight division. We got Andre Arlovsky versus Jake Collier. I mean, Arlovsky generally has great success against guys that he has a size advantage over, but Jake Collier, I mean, listen, man, he's matching his height and reach, and yeah, he's pushing that 265 limit these days. So, overall, like, you look at the fight, it's like any Arlovsky fight at this point, you imagine should probably be about even money. And to see Collier at plus 125, I just can't trust his gas tank enough. Even if the total volume of strikes being landed is going to outland anything Arlovsky's done recently, the visual optics of him looking up at the clock, breathing heavily, and what he does is he kind of backs away after throwing a combo. Like Jake Collier, when it comes to the judges, I can't trust it. So even at plus 125, I'm having a tough time even playing the money line there. But this fight goes the distance. That's like one of the most solid things I say you could play is minus 175 or fight to be won by split or majority decision plus 450. You got to love a split decision with Andre Arlovsky at the table. So, Guru, what are you seeing here? Because I don't know. This one's a little.
I love that. I love that split a majority decision plus 450. I really do love that. Yeah. I kind of was on Jake Collier to start here. I don't know. He seemed like he'd be, like you said, he'd be like, as the numbers also seem to show, he seemed like he'd be able to, especially at distance, right? That number gets even, the strikes landed at distance even gets longer. It even gets bigger when you look at it at distance. So that's super interesting. I like you said, the optics of Jake Collier is not great. Andre Arlovsky is right on a 3-fight winning streak here now. Has only lost to Tom Aspinall and Rosenstrike in his last 8 fights or whatever it is. Other than that, before that he was on that terrible losing streak, right, to where he finished it up losing to Augusto Sakai. Like that's terrible. Yeah, I it's tough to even say that the guy he's fighting now, Jake Collier, is so much better than Jared Vanderaa, Carlos Felipe, Chase Sherman, Tanner Bozer, Felipe Lins. Like he's kind of in the mix there. They're kind of all the same level to me. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I kind of I like you said, I like the over, and I guess I probably end up taking Andre Arlovsky because the judges seem to really like him at this point. He's gotten a lot of favorable wins. So
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe Schwan can tell me something.
The biggest thing in mixed martial arts, and this is with every organization when it comes to light heavyweight and heavyweight. The biggest problem is those divisions are so thin as far as the talent level that guys don't ever really get the appropriate amount of seasoning and experience. Like when guys are winning, it's always basically dominating losses or dominating wins. You very rarely see evenly contested heavyweight fights from 1 to 3 rounds, 1 to 5 rounds. Usually it's fairly one-sided or a dynamically ended fight one way or another. And so these guys, they don't learn how to work out of spots. They don't learn how to get into spots. And when a fight goes past a certain time frame, you see a lot of their poise. You see a lot of any defensive skills they have, any wrestling skills, any offensive striking skills. You start seeing it erode very quickly because they're not used to having to work to get to a spot, having to work to get to a position, having to get a position and get it again. Usually you get the position and that's it. Usually you start landing these shots. This guy folds up or he backs up so much, gets defensive. He can't do anything. And with Collier, it just seems like he's fallen victim to that. When a fight becomes tough and a guy isn't just going away or a guy isn't just letting him have his way, he tends to start getting tired. He starts getting real hittable. He starts kind of getting real defensive and starts lunging and throwing big shots. He won't stick to a plan or stick to a process in the direction of winning. He'll start going for desperation because he doesn't have anything past that initial phase of strength, aggression, physicality, volume, whatever. He doesn't really have a system to support that when he's not fresh or when he's not having his way. And you see that against fights against the better athletes he's faced and the more experienced fighters he's faced. He hasn't looked tremendously great unless he's had a size advantage or maybe an athleticism advantage. When he hasn't had that advantage, he's more or less gotten handled fairly easily. Arlovsky does not have his athleticism anymore. He still has it in spots, but he doesn't have the way he used to. But Arlovsky's been in the game forever. There's nothing that Collier is going to do that's going to shock him. Is he going to wrestle him? Arlovsky's faced better wrestlers. He's faced better volume strikers. He's faced better power punchers. He's faced better technical strikers, defensive strikers. He's faced everything. There's nothing that this guy is going to show him that he's not prepared for. The thing you have to worry about is, does Arlovsky get old overnight? For one, he never took the greatest shot. His defense and his positioning has gotten better so he can handle shots better. But once again, you have to wonder, when's that clock going to strike 12 and he's going to go from a competent or very good heavyweight to a guy who's a complete heavy bag? It happens just that quick, and we don't know whenever it's going to happen. I would have to favor Arlovsky because he can win a technical striking battle. He could probably at this stage still win a brawl. He's been one of the better conditioned guys, and he can fight on the inside, clinch, and fight at range. He could probably win a grappling and a wrestling match. It just comes down to, is he able to maintain a pace and physically control Collier? If Collier gets tired, then Arlovsky, after the first round, Arlovsky should just take over and eke out a win because he's not going to – he won't take any chances. He won't take any big chances. Basically, if he can get through that first round, I don't see how he loses this fight. He's pretty much better in every single aspect, technically, mentally, and as far as experience. If Collier doesn't get him out there immediately, I don't know what he does because even in his wins, his cardio has not looked great. And even in his wins, once he hasn't been able to just bowl someone over, you start seeing him get a little bit less impressive with every round going. Like instead of pulling away, the rounds seem to get a little bit more competitive. Even if he's dominating, you're like, well, he can't hold that guy down. Wait a minute. He hit that guy the first time. The guy went flying into the fence. He hit him now, and the guy hit him right back. Like, that's not the way it's supposed to go.
But what about Fat Collier being elite? Shout out Daz. But, yeah. Yeah, I think you. I really do. I think you. I think you sold me on Arlovsky enough that like I may personally want to take a little grandma's couch cushion and throw it on Arlovsky by decision by at plus 150 on FanDuel, which by the way, FanDuel's putting out a slaughterous number at minus 154 money line on Arlovsky, whereas DraftKings you can still get him at minus 145.
Huh.
So,
well, yeah. So ultimately, it's like you see Collier finishing Sherman in round 1, and you see him, beating Jean Vellante in his move up to heavyweight. How much stock do you want to put into those performances?
a ton.
As
all
opposed to him gassing versus Felipe and once again, just kind of getting smashed by Aspinall. But yeah, overall, like, whereas I was kind of leaning to want to throw something on Collier early there, no longer interested. I do think I rock with the favorite in that spot, and we have the dog in the main event. So that
do we think that there's any value on the straight up minus 175, the fight going the distance? Are we nervous about either like Collier being too tired and Arlovsky somehow getting his first finish since he finished oh my god, I had it on the tip of my tongue. But he had to finish like 10 years ago. Or is somehow he gonna get clipped here, or you know what I mean? Like I think maybe minus.
I just don't know. Is he willing to take a risk though? Like does he have the energy to really open up and finish? And is he willing to take a risk? Because, like I said, he's part of the reason he's becomes on his resurgence is because he's become risk averse. Before he used to come out and flying knees and combos. Now he's very meticulous. He sets a rhythm and then he builds on it and he starts taking things away from you. That's why I'm leaning towards him on the fight. Yeah. If Collier's plan A doesn't work, does he have a plan B? I haven't seen it.
No. His last finish was UFC 187, Johnson versus Cormier.
Good God.
He finished Travis Brown in 2015. So like you know what I'm saying?
It's Arlovsky decision.
Right. So but so like I'm asking, is it minus 175 fight go the distance? Is that a good play? Straight up. Like we don't even necessarily need to pick a side. We don't need to pick a side with the sketchy.
That was one of my feels.
Yeah, I'd have to go with that. If he finished him, that'd be like picking like Holly Holm to beat Ronda Rousey. It's just such out of left field.
Or vice versa in terms of Collier finishing. Agreed, Nick. I don't know why this is a co-main. Collier with back-to-back co-main event spots. I just
being a heavyweight pays off.
I don't, you know what I mean? So I'm saying like, this is something. So I'm not. That's a good point too. I don't know that Collier gets the finish, and I don't think Andre does either. So why not bet at minus 175? Fight goes the distance, or minus 166 on FanDuel. Like ooh. I think we should literally lay that now.
Go ahead. Like give it up. I'll get us into that next fight. I like 1.6,
1.7 to because it's 166.
That's definitely something I mentioned in my initial breakdown. So to have you feeling it too.
Okay, that's I'm gonna go like that
right there. So while Guru gets that down, let's get to our next fight here, which I got a little bit of a breakdown here, but it seems pretty straightforward to me. We got Andre Fili versus Joanderson Brito. And this one, I mean, Fili at minus 260 and Brito at plus 210. It's like, I feel like they're giving him a step up here in his second appearance after losing a decision to Bill Algeo. I know Algeo can put on a pace. I know he's got a good chin. I know he likes coming forward. He's a tough grappler. But, I mean, you could say a lot of those same things about Andre Fili at this point. But I do think that Fili has, much more experience in the UFC, 16 total fights. You see him at 9-7, so he's not, not too afraid to take a loss here every once and again. But ultimately, his striking numbers are pretty high level. I mean, as far as from distance, from strikes landed, you see, Brito, he has that small sample size. He's got some decent numbers, but so much of that fight with Algeo was spent grappling. He has control for 33%. Algeo's got control for 33%. They only spend so much time from distance. So to land almost 8 strikes per minute at distance, like, yeah, that's great, but super small sample size. You're talking a total of 5 minutes. So overall, Andre Fili, he's just shown us so much more, and the ability to mix up his game plan based on what's happening. When he gets hurt against Charles Jourdain, how does he win the fight? He goes to his offensive wrestling. When he's fighting Bryce Mitchell, I mean, that ended up being a much closer fight than it probably should have been, especially given how Bryce Mitchell dominated Edson Barbosa. I'm pretty sure Fili took that third round there. So, yeah, Andre Fili, he's shown the ability to be defensive, be offensive. He loves his striking. He's lost to some of the top names. I mean, Sadiq Yusuf, Bryce Mitchell, Michael Johnson on a good day, Calvin Cater, Yair Rodriguez, Max Holloway, Godofredo Pepe. You can mix that name in there too. But overall, yeah, I mean, listen, so Andre Fili, minus 260. I definitely think he's got to be taking this home, but Brito definitely packs a punch, and that first round finish is live. Guru, where are you at on this one?
Submitting this. So I'm just about to submit that right now. It is done.
We are live.
Officially just place that in, just lock that in. Honestly, and whatever. Oh my God, I'm so happy we did that. Anyway, so Andre Fili, man, was putting on an unbelievable performance, like I alluded to last in the breakdown, the opening. He was putting on a great performance versus Daniel Pineda before he poked him in the eye, raked his eye, and the fight was stopped. It was super unfortunate, especially for us who had money on it. Before that, he got.
Who cares about his eye?
Yeah.
How does the bet go, sir?
He's fine. He's fine. He's fine. He's faking. Shout out Eric Cartman. So listen, before that, he had lost to Bryce Mitchell, which, as we saw, I mean, Edson Barbosa get 30-26 by Bryce Mitchell. It seems like it kind of excusable. He showed some decent wrestling chops in that, but you kind of wanted a little bit more from him. Had a split decision win versus Charles Jourdain, which I thought was super weird because I shouldn't. There's nothing to really debate. He won rounds 2 and 3. I thought fairly clearly. But he got rocked in round 1, and I didn't really like seeing that. And again, loses to Sadiq Yusuf, and we broke that fight down when Sadiq fought. Sadiq wins rounds 1 and 2 fantastically, even shows off some grappling, and then round 3, Sadiq is tired and kind of coughs it up, which is a little concerning if you're scouting for Sadiq, but is a good sign if we're scouting for Fili, which we currently are. Wins over Shaman Moraes, Miles Jury. Nothing really to write home about there. Split decision loss to Johnson. My point is the guy's fairly middling and has yet to really have a hallmark performance, which is why after how many UFC fights? Nearly 20 UFC fights. He's yet to break into the top 15 because he's yet to put a stamp on anything. He really struggles to do that, to really rise to the occasion. And it's because he really struggles with guys that are like more physical than him. And if Joe Anderson Brito is anything, it's more physical. He comes out crazy aggressive. He's got that giant intimidating shark tattoo on his back. The only reason he lost to Billy Algeo is because Billy Algeo is fucking crazy and is just firing crazy strikes while moving backwards. And Joe Anderson gasses out after honestly about 4 minutes, but really probably 7. Like he's cooked after 7, but 4 you could already see the effects. Is I guess more of what I'm saying. And in this fight, though, again, it's concerning because if Fili doesn't hurt him early or like gets hurt too much early, I wonder what happens. I'd like to see Fili come out stunt and put a stamp on a guy that should be fairly thicker than him. So I'm going to be waiting till weigh-ins. So I would like to see Andre Fili come out and prove himself as a minus 250. I just don't, or now minus 260. I just don't see why I should lay that now when I basically laid that on him versus Daniel Pineda. And I think Joe Anderson Brito beats Daniel Pineda personally. So it was the same line. And you know what I mean? I thought it was a great bet on Daniel Pineda. We just kind of got betting against Daniel Pineda on Fili. I just think we got the shit end of the stick there. So yeah, I don't love it. I think Brito's kind of a crazy man. So, but not enough to take it. So I'm rambling.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of Brito because he seems like you said, he's big, he's strong, he's physical, he's aggressive, but to that degree, he's kind of a front runner. He's like a guy who who can really, I would say he fights in spots, but essentially he really only fights in the lead. Once he loses control of a fight, his physicality and durability allows him to stay in it and have moments. But once the fight kind of turned, at no point was he ever able to regain control of the fight or even make it neutral, whereas a 50-50 fight, he kept coming forward, he kept trying to push the pace, but he didn't have the gas to. He didn't have the technique really to back him up on the wrestling. He didn't really have the technique on the striking. It was just all aggression and physicality. Fili is middling, but he's not middling because he doesn't put on good fights. He's middling because he's lost to the elite talents and the elite fighters in the division. He doesn't lose to just anybody. And for you to turn the corner and get into the higher ranks, you have to beat a name. And so far, he's been unable to beat a name, but he's beaten everybody else. Like you said, Joe Anderson could jump on him early and start putting a beating on him and push him up against the cage and maybe even take him down. But if that happens, that means Joe Anderson's going to be in tie-ups and clinches and working to hold position and working to get strikes on the ground. And when you make him work, he tends to fade. Yeah. And Fili, even though he got dominated by Mitchell, at no point did he mentally give up. He kept fighting back. And Mitchell puts on a lot. He's physical and he's athletic. He puts on a lot of pressure. He could just really control a lot of guys. He didn't just control Fili. I mean, he was slowing him down. He was putting the pressure on him like an anaconda, but Fili was still in the fight. Fili was still making him work for takedowns, working for position, work to land strikes the whole time. And we've seen Fili get dominated early and work his way through. And that's part of the benefit of working at Team Alpha Male. You always face big athletes, dynamic athletes. You have to learn how to navigate aggression, athleticism, and physicality. And he knows how to do that. So Brito doesn't get him out immediately. Then most likely he's going to tire, and Fili's just going to take over. He's probably the better offensive striker, the better counter striker, the better defensive striker. And even if he's not a better grappler, I would think as far as in scrambles, in reversing position, hitting switches, all that, he's better than Brito. Brito to me looks like a guy who depends on his physicality to get takedowns, his physicality to be effective on the feet, his physicality to dominate on the ground with grappling. And that's great until you meet a guy who can match it, or at least a guy who's willing to engage you on multiple levels, which Fili will do. So if Brito doesn't get him out early, even if Brito puts a beating on him, Fili's tough. Fili will fight back. And once he starts fighting back, I don't know that Brito can fight back. I know Fili can fight back and fight his way out of tough spots. I haven't seen Brito do it, except on the regional level, he was just having his way. So I don't know.
So hear me out. So Brito's 2 losses, one the decision to Algio, and he's got one submission loss, right? So why not bet Andre Fili by submission plus 1,100?
That makes sense. That's actually that's a good one.
He gasses out, right, and then maybe round 2 or 3, he gets on his back and then kind of is clubbing him and just kind of goes for some
maybe they're on the feet and he's getting touched up, he's tired, he shoots, and we see that famous Team Alpha Male guillotine.
Right. There you go. Oh, there you go.
There it is.
I like that too.
I like a little greasy submission play.
Because otherwise, listen, I don't really see much in Andre Fili by decision plus 150. That doesn't really tickle my fancy too much. And I guess the way you talked about it, I was maybe being a little overly nervous, but you look at it, Bryce Mitchell, Sadiq Youssef, Michael Johnson when he has his A game, Calvin Kattar, Yair Rodriguez, Max Holloway. I mean, that's like the best of the best. So
the most physical and the most well-conditioned guys who don't get tired.
Maybe we'll end up laying 2.5 on him to win one. That might be crazy. We might have to maybe parlay him out.
Yeah, so a little something. I think there's another piece coming up here. I think we could find a little something.
Yeah, because I'm not playing Andre Fili in over 1.5.
No. Well, actually, I mean, let's look at this next fight here. I mean, what do we got over here? We got Grant Dawson versus Jared Gordon. Nick Alexander, thanks for showing up today. I don't know if we've seen you before in the chat. Thanks for coming, man.
Yeah,
that's what we're thinking. We think Fili might give up around here, but yeah, I think he's going to get it done in the end. Jared Gordon versus Grant Dawson. You got Grant Dawson minus 180, Jared Gordon plus 155. A couple of guys who spent a little time at featherweight meeting up here at the lightweight division. Grant Dawson, actually, I know it says Glory MMA up there. This guy's been at American Top Team this camp. Jared Gordon's been over at Sanford for his last few. I got to say, Jared Gordon is definitely impressive overall, just as far as like knowing when to mix his game up, when to use his physicality, overall fight IQ. The one thing that gets me a little concerned, though, is like I just don't love what I see as far as like his actual combos, especially as he starts to get a little more tired as the fight goes on, and I just think his like size and physicality is not going to work as well at 155 as it might have done at 145 for him. I think there were a couple matchups he's had that like where it did make sense, where it did work out for him. You know, Jared Gordon, you know, Selecki. Okay, that's a guy that's not too big. You know, Chavez once again. You know, Fish Gold. There are a few of these names going around. I mean, even Algio back on CFFC. You know, that's a taller, skinnier guy, so somebody could muscle around a little bit. I mean, Grant Dawson is fucking huge. Yeah. He was huge for 145. He's still big for 155. I mean, to get a knockout on Leonardo Santos, I mean that was impressive no matter where it came in the fight. And you know, Grant Dawson, we saw him gas out bad his last fight against Ricky Glenn, but you know, Ricky Glenn a little bit size, you know, a little bit bigger than even Jared Gordon is. So, and he had been working hard on his wrestling that camp. It was difficult to get him down on the initial takedowns. I think the same is not to be said for Jared Gordon. I feel like sometimes he's a little bit accepting of that initial takedown early, whereas he'll fight a little bit in the clinch and stuff like that. But if you shoot a good shot, single, double from distance, anything like that, and Dawson's going to chain it together, I think he's going to be able to get the top control, hold it. Gordon's not really a threat off of his back with the jiu-jitsu. It's more so his control and ability to survive submission attempts. So I think ultimately it's like Dawson by knockout or decision is where I'm leaning in this fight. And Dawson at minus 180, that could just be a parlay piece in itself. So Guru, talk to me here, man.
Yeah, I don't think that you're going to be submitting Jared Gordon. Jared Gordon's really, really good on the ground. It's, you know, one of the things that he more practices with his jiu-jitsu there. Jared Gordon, an awesome guy. I think he got like 6 years sober, got a really great story, super active on Twitter. Really, really like the guy, has cashed a bunch as a dog. I mean, the dude is, you know, won 4 of his last 5 fights, right? And the loss being to the champ, Charles Oliveira. So, like, you know, props to him. He's got a tough out, though. Grant Dawson is just a different fucking beast. He's just that cornbread fed, you know, all American, just gonna come out and just wear on you, man. And unfortunately for Grant, he gets tired doing that. So that's why he had a draw in his last fight versus Ricky Glenn, right? Like, he's dominating rounds 1 and 2 the way you're supposed to, or the way that we predict him to basically do. You know, if you want to know how he fights, watch that fight. That is exactly how Grant Dawson fights. And then he gasses out so bad in round 3 and survives, though, that Ricky Glenn gets a 10-8 on him and gets a square draw, which is just fucking nuts. So I look to, I'm not sure that American Top Team is going to fix his training camp, his cardio. I don't know why he didn't go to like not to team elevation specifically, but why he didn't go to elevation, like to improve his like lung capacity, whatever. I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see what this new training camp brings to his game. It's tough for me to fade Jared Gordon, but I think I will do it because I'm just not sure where Gordon will win. Gordon has showed himself to be at times just a bit too malleable. You see it in the Danny Chavez fight. You saw it in the first 7 minutes of the Joe Selecki fight. He just wins the last 8 minutes of that fight. So, and in the Fishgold fight too, you know, he's got a tough weight cut with no coaches, Fight Island, the whole craziness, and he digs it out. So again, nobody's questioning this guy's toughness. I just think that he's a bit too malleable, and Grant Dawson is a bit too physical. Similar to the last fight, though, I really do think that this fight goes the distance, unless Jared Gordon's quote-unquote chin issues resurface. I do kind of like Grant Dawson here. Why did he? I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure why it changed. I'm not sure if it was a permanent change. It might just be, you know, he's a young guy. You might as well see the world, so to speak, in terms of. But I'm not really sure.
I think this is what's going to help the cardio the most. ATT's got them best, you know,
undetectable juices. Oh my goodness.
Some, you know, the doctors over there. They know.
Oh my goodness.
Well, it didn't work for Amanda Nunes. I'll tell you that.
No, it did not. No, and she decided to start her own thing. But at the end of the day, I like this fight to go the distance. It's sitting minus 190 on on DraftKings, and it's sitting minus 190 on FanDuel as well. I think it goes the distance.
I don't know that change. I know when you change, people always talk about like they change camps and it's the best training camp ever, and they showed me all this stuff. Given my experience working with athletes, whether it's basketball or a fighter, when you go to new camp, it takes a while for whatever new things they're showing you for it to really kick in, and it usually does not kick in the first fight. Mainly, what they do, they might get you in better shape, maybe, or maybe they give you a different perspective. Like I tell kids when I work on basketball, I could change your perspective on the game quicker than I can actually improve any one technique you have. We can work out like a couple weeks, and I can change your perspective, and all of a sudden you're getting 10 rebounds instead of 4 because now I've told you and installed the value of rebounding. You're a better passer now because I've installed in you to be a willing passer. You're not seeing the floor any better, but now when you see it, instead of holding it, you just pass it.
You're seeing it differently.
Yeah, I'm changing your perspective. And when you change somebody's perspective on it, it's like changing perspective in life. Before it's meeting girls and getting drunk. Now it's having a good relationship, taking care of your kids. It makes you seem like you're the same person. Your perspective just shifted. That's all it is. And I think ATT could do that with Dawson. I wouldn't think they can fix a cardio issue, especially not in one fight, unless they teach him how to maybe, instead of pushing a pace, maybe using a little bit more control and be more methodical with your aggression. My concern for Gordon is he's a good athlete. He seems very physical. He seems mentally tough. But in his win streak, it's been guys who can't really match him physically. Even if they get off the fast starts, they're not dynamic finishers. They're not big punchers. They're not dynamic submission people.
Right.
The guys who jumped on him early. And it's like if you fought a guy who's 50 pounds heavier than you and all things are equal, you could jump on him early, maybe even rock him. But eventually, unless you're some kind of big hitter, he's going to start working his way back into it because you can't ever put the final nail in that coffin. And that's what happened to Gordon. He was able to, he can grapple. Yeah, he's good at that control and punching guys and threatening with submissions. But that's usually from a position of power. He's not great when you're pressing him and his physicality is not able to help him determine control and takedowns. And against Dawson, I don't think his physicality is going to be a defining factor. On top of that, Dawson is probably as physical, if not more, but he's a much better athlete in my opinion. So now you got to be challenged on two of the things he built his game around. And I'm not saying he's not technical, but everybody leans on something: IQ, speed, power, strength. Two of the things he leans on, two of the advantages he has in 90% of the fights he goes into are no longer clear advantages. So what happens at that point? I've seen Dawson had guys kind of push back against him. I've seen him where he's, like you said, he's dominated and the guy was able to work his way through and then impose his will on him, and he found a way to survive. When guys have been able to impose their will on Gordon, it hasn't gone quite as well for him. Or when guys have forced him to work to maintain control or get positions. And against Dawson, he's going to have to work to maintain position and to get control. And I think Dawson's the better athlete. I think he's probably as physical, if not more so. I think he's probably hits a little bit harder too, to be honest. So I think it's an uphill battle against Gordon. And recently, Gordon's been starting really slow, and Dawson's a pretty fast starter. And
I was going to say what I actually think is kind of interesting. I almost think we might be getting like a little bit of a recency bias type of price on Grant Dawson. I remember Grant Dawson being heavily favored in some of these fights. No, right? Like if we went back at like Bet MMA, like not Bet MMA, if we went back on like fight odds or whatever, like hasn't he been like minus 400s and stuff? Like I think we're getting a decent price on him at minus 180 here.
Yeah. I think that fight against Glenn really made people think like, oh, this dude's a front runner. And I'm not even saying that he's not, but to a certain degree, Gordon is too. You could say he starts slow, but when you have a huge physical and athletic advantage, physicality and size, starting slow isn't really being a front runner. When you push back and then they got to push back again, that's when you find out. And I don't know when Gordon's had somebody push back on him, he hasn't looked tremendously defensively aware on the feet or on the ground or in his wrestling. And I think Dawson can do it. Now, if Dawson tires, it's 50-50 fight, but Dawson tends to be the faster starter, and he should be able to match Gordon at least right off the bat initially. Physically, he should be able to match him or be superior to him. So it's really hard for me to come up with a way with how Gordon wins this.
A little Dawson Feely parlay, money lines, DraftKings. plus 115.
I actually was just placing that myself. Oopsies. I also threw
so that's
down
what I'm saying. So
Chito while we were at it,
2 units on that. Like I don't see why not. It seems fairly safe.
Yeah, I'm all about it. I mean, that's
Jared Gordon's got that personality, and I'm not saying he couldn't win this, but he's got a personality and a story that I think people bet on him because they relate to that story and that victory and that triumph. And,
sure.
and it's a great story, but it's like you have to separate the story from what actually is. It's like when people used to fight Floyd Mayweather. Oh, he's coming up. He's fought his way to the best, and now he's going to win the fight against Floyd. Yeah, that sounds really good, but there's a reality. You still got to get in the ring and do what you got to do, and that's where the gaps show up. Gordon's a good fighter, not a great one, and I wonder if fighting at that weight class below put excess strain on his body, and I don't know what he has at this point, especially against a guy he can't bully.
That's a very good point.
So yeah, Dawson parlay piece, throw it down.
I just placed that. Do you want me to put that on?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Oh, do we want to wait? Oh, are we waiting till weigh-ins or we're good?
No, I think I'm good on that one.
What if he misses? Let me ask you a question. When y'all have a bet, what happens when a guy misses weight? Does that change it, or does that just change the odds?
Oh, it doesn't.
It doesn't necessarily change either. I mean, it depends if we've already locked it into Bet MMA. There's nothing we can do.
Okay.
If we haven't played it yet, I mean, that kind of comes up to between me and TB, and we kind of discuss how we may just stay away. Like I guess we'd have to look at a specific situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this is certainly a tough one. I mean, I feel like hasn't Grant Dawson had issues on the scale before or no?
Well, he's moving up weight to lightweight. He was there last fight, so he's not making that extra 10 pounds anymore. So that's where I'm not so concerned as much. Now he's got his new home at 155.
Yeah, the fact that the fact that he's moving up kind of makes me think that he feels he can carry his weight and do more damage. If I recall correctly, Gordon moved to lightweight, then moved back down, and then moved back to lightweight. So so I think Gordon thought he had a clear advantage at featherweight, and he's kind of being forced to move back to lightweight. Yeah, that's a kind of concern for me.
Oh, that was the other thing. You know what? You just brought that up. Has Gordon actually I feel like his last 2-3 fights have been at catch weight. Has he made weight? Has he actually had a fight at the proper weight class yet?
His last fight was his second to last fight against Chavez. He was a catch weight. He missed weight.
Right.
But then he was a lightweight in his last matchup against Selecki.
And he made weight.
Well, yeah, 155.
Oh, up 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Yeah, it just like I said, it's
that's
like
what I'm saying. Both of them are up weight, so I'm not concerned about.
But one of them was up, dropped down, and then moved back up. The other one was up and is like, you know what? It's better for me to go up. Like I think Dawson has more faith that this is going to benefit him. I think Gordon's in a position where he has to. I don't have a choice.
All right. So how many units am I putting on this parlay, TB?
3.
3?
3.
3. All right.
Yeah. Wow. So so here we go. We got our next fight here. We got Darren Elkins versus Tristan Connolly. This one, Tristan Connolly, I think another one of those guys moving down to the featherweight division. I mean, he made his debut at welterweight on short notice against Michel Pereira, but yeah, his last fight, he looked a little Skeletor like there against Sabatini. He actually showed some pretty decent cardio winning the third round, but it almost looked like Sabatini was kind of taking that round off. So I don't know how much stock you put into that. Tristan Connolly has shown, the dog in him and everything like that, but he's so loopy with his punches. He throws a lot into it, and I think he just, Elkins is there to be hit, but he's got the reach advantage here, and ultimately I just think the experience advantage too, where he might take a couple strikes at distance, but Connolly's not one of those guys that's going to overwhelm you with his striking ability. He's a grinder, and someone that has better wrestling ability than him and Darren Elkins. That's where, am I really going out there saying I want to throw, we got Elkins at minus 170 and Connolly at plus 150? No. That's where I draw my line in the sand. Like, I'm just not going to play this fight, but I think the right guy's favored, maybe by a little too much. But yeah, that's where you just stay away and don't play it, because I still think he's going to win. Connolly, I just think he leaves himself open to those takedown opportunities, and Elkins, rinse and repeat. I mean, let your opponent get a little bit tired and just grind him. And if he doesn't get knocked out, I think that's the game plan here. Got to make a quick run, boys. I'll be right back.
Yeah,
So how about you? How about you break?
Go do that. Listen, so my problem with that is, a lot. Honestly, Darren Elkins at 37 years old is a fan favorite. The Damage, right? He takes his name, The Damage, right? It's a problem because it's not about him giving damage. It's about him taking damage, sustaining it, and being able to somehow wear through. So we want to look back at his fights, right? All right. So he was on a 4-fight losing streak, kind of which that we honestly can excuse all of them, right? Alex Volkanovski, Ricardo Lamas, Ryan Hall, Nate Landwehr. Nate Landwehr is probably the one that you can't really excuse. So 3 out of the 4 of them are like, all right, whatever. Then he get his 2 wins, right? Eduardo Garagori, right? That guy gets signed because they had the fight in Uruguay. So he gets signed, gets his win there. The dude is probably really not UFC level at all.
Exactly.
Is winning 2 rounds, gasses out, and Damage pulls out the finish. Let's go to this next fight. Derrick Minor, okay? Derrick Minor is beating the piss out of him, winning on top of him. Derrick Minor, the most classic, I can give you 1 round and then I'm falling off a cliff. And he does. He falls off a cliff. And because of that, Darren Elkins, the Savage, weathers that crazy storm and gets the round 2 submission over Derrick Minor, who, again, it might be a mental thing because I can't imagine you can train in the gym and not, how can you do 2-a-days and have that kind of cardio? That must be a mental block for Derrick Minor because that's really crazy. And then he comes out against Cub Swanson. Cub Swanson wants none of his grappling business, shucks him off, looks so much stronger, channels himself from 15 years ago, and hits a spinning wheel kick. Crazy dude shooting takedowns into the fence. It was wild. What a fight. On the opposite side of that coin, right? It really was annoying. On the opposite side of that coin, right? You see Tristan Connolly, right? Who's only had 2 fights in the UFC. He fights Michel Pereira, basically up a weight class, right? Welterweight. Or it's really up 2 weight classes. Because it was where he was fighting, but Michel Pereira is huge. He comes out, Michel Pereira, before he's refined, gasses out, and he beats Michel Pereira, a guy physically stronger, tougher, better than him on every which way. He gets Michel Pereira's money because Michel missed weight. They get fight of the night. He gets that too. He cashes out big, takes a huge, huge time off. Comes out versus fucking Pat Sabatini. They give him a savage grappler, wrestler beast in Pat Sabatini. Hits hard, trained really well. One of the more well-rounded prospects the UFC has at the moment. Pat does his thing for 10 minutes. And then Pat's tired. And who wins round 3? Tristan fucking Connolly, man. He's still there. He looked like a fucking skeleton on the scales. I was so nervous for him. He looked terrible. But he not only survives, he wins round 3. So now you're coming out against a guy in Darren Elkins who's not physically strong. He gets hit by everybody. He's like, bring it on. He wants to get hit. He's going to get hit. So if Tristan Connolly doesn't fade, I actually like his chances here. And I have no reason to see why I would lay minus 170 or whatever on Darren Elkins. This fight should be pick 'em. So I like Connolly. I'm on the dog or pass.
First of all, before I say this, I used to talk to Derrick Elkins online, Messenger or whatever. Just got in touch with him because I was commenting on something, probably on Twitter. I commented something, and he commented me back, so we started talking about stuff. That dude's a really good dude. He's a good dude. He has a really good head on his brain as far as brain in his head as far as how he approaches life and how he approaches the business of mixed martial arts. If he ended up broke or something, I'd be shocked because the guy I talked to was ahead of the game and how he prepared how he prepared his money, how he took care of his money, how he took care of his family. I would just have to assume, based on what I've heard from him, if he's fighting, it's merely because he wants to, not because he has to. He's not in a position where he has to, based on the guy I talked to years ago. I don't know if that's the case anymore. To the fight, I don't know how anybody can be so sure about Darren Elkins. I understand Connolly is not a knockout puncher. He's not a dynamic finisher as far as submissions. But the fact of the matter is, as you stated, against two guys who were physically stronger than him and who fought at a pace that should have favored them, he was able to not to compete. He wasn't completely dominated. He was able to compete and stay in fights and then come back and win them. Elkins' whole career is him being able to physically impose himself on somebody, bully them, take them down, and break them with physical pressure and ground and pound. He's never been much of a striker offensively. He's never been much of a striker defensively. Even his submissions come from his physicality of just making you want to quit and give him something. He's not really a technician in any true sense of the word. Even with his wrestling, he's got good, clean wrestling, but nobody thinks of him as some sort of high-level, advanced chain wrestler. Nobody's ever said that against Elkins. Elkins spams takedowns. He physically bullies you. He wears you down with the attempts. When he finally gets you down, he keeps you down, and he beats the hell out of you. And if you're beating the hell out of him, he's so mentally tough and he's so gritty, he'll continue to keep going and keep making you fight until you don't have anything left. So if you haven't finished him, he comes on late and he ekes out wins, ekes out finishes. There's no real clinical, technical direction or structure in how he fights. It's literally a matter of physicality, of pace, and meat and potatoes wrestling. That's really his whole style. There's not too many tricks or layers or subtleties to it. So what you're asking me is, at this stage, do I think Elkins can take him down and for 3 rounds just punish him, break him down, or submit him before he gasses? I don't know I can make that bet. I don't know that I can bet on that anymore. Before, he used to chase takedowns a little bit, but he'd get them fairly quickly. Now guys are sprawling him, shucking him off, throwing him off, and when they're catching him on the feet, he looks bad. He looks like he's really getting rocked with every single shot he gets touched with. And it's just his mentality and his physical strength that allows him to get these takedowns and just find a safety zone. Connolly isn't super experienced, so Elkins could lean on his experience and his wrestling, but Elkins is so limited on the feet, and he's really so limited in his wrestling and his grappling. If he isn't able to physically bully you, back you up, and take you down, what else does he have? Seriously, what else does he have? So while I see why people favor him, you have to think, after all these wars, because every fight with him is a struggle. It's never just a dominating win, a blowout, a submission, a one-punch knockout. Almost every single fight he's been in has been a back-and-forth, grueling fight. Even the ones he dominates are grueling fights. You can only do that for so long, and you've already seen the slippage. You've seen guys who aren't UFC-level guys put him on skates, defend his takedowns, put him on his back. It's only a matter of time before he crosses that threshold and he can't come back. I very well think it might be this time, not because Connolly's so great. I think if Connolly wins, it tells us a lot more about Elkins than it tells us about Connolly. It doesn't tell us anything about Connolly. It just tells us that Elkins has gotten past his expiration point, and those last 2 wins were his last 2 hurrahs as a fighter.
Yeah, ultimately, that's why I keep saying, like, I do not have a bet on this one, because I don't find myself on the underdog, but there's no way you could trust Darren Elkins at this price. There's no way.
I find myself on the underdog with grandma's couch cushions, and I honestly might end up doing a circle on the dog just for my own conscience. But I won't be placing a bet, and I certainly won't. I won't be tracking anything. But when you look at it, minus 170, that's a 63% win probability, right? Like, that's just to break even. He's got to win this fight 7 times out of 10 for you to make money. Like, I don't see that. This is a pick'em fight. Again, this is now his Connolly's 2nd fight dropping down to featherweight. He's gonna be more comfortable. He's gonna be more prepared. Like, it's the same. It's honestly the same thought as when you're with a gym for your 2nd fight. You're now getting those game plans. It's the same idea. He's gonna have a much better outing. And in a fight in a card where I see a lot of favorites, this is a dog that listen, Elkins, to me, Elkins is a better grappler.
He was He was levels above though.
Right.
It's different. If this was a pure grappling wrestling match, Elkins clearly. The minute you throw any sort of striking into, I don't know that Elkins holds up. Now, maybe he does, and he wins, and then people go, see, I showed you. But if Elkins got sparked off the first big right hand he ate, nobody would be shocked by that either.
And to me, to Rogue Strummer, I'm sorry to cut you off, to be. It's like, it's okay for us to be wrong in this spot, because to be on Darren Elkins and be wrong in this spot would be devastating. Minus 170 is crazy. Like, if you're taking a if it's an even money shot on him, cool. You're taking dog money on him, cool. You found a prop you like, cool. Laying chalk on him, that's what we're the conversation is truly about here. And that's where we're like, I can't do it.
Even Elkins' decision plus 130 isn't attractive enough. That's not good enough. It's that I can't play it. And although I do end up picking him straight up, I can't play it. So that'll bring us on.
Same price. So, dude, Darren Elkins is the same price as Grant Dawson. What the fuck?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, play Grant Dawson as a confident
not all
player,
favorites
young,
are created
athletic.
Equally.
Exactly. So
let's move along. Jeez, Louise.
Once again, I think it's just name recognition. Sometimes when you have a new guy who's a name we recognize, that guy must be better.
That's it. So Krzysztof Jotko minus 170, Gerald Meerschaert plus 150.
Let's keep this one short. This is easy. Jocko's going to stay to the outside, use his striking, or Gerald's somehow going to pull a submission out of his ass, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, ultimately, you see Gerald Meerschaert submission plus 300. Let's go. Give it to me.
Is that it? Is it only plus 300?
That's what I got it on DraftKings. At sometimes FanDuel.
I'm checking FanDuel. Yeah, they're probably
spicy submission lines.
A little spicy. Let's see.
Because I just think Gerald is someone that can
plus 460. Plus 460.
All right, I'm gonna go throw a quick little piece on that one because I just think like Gerald's a guy that drags the fight out. Jotko, he did get taken down and controlled for periods by Serkinov, who at that weight class just wasn't comfortable pushing the pace. So now, I just feel like a guy like Gerald Meerschaert, comfortable in his weight class, comfortable in his cardio, comfortable in his ability to kind of make a fight ugly. Jotko has a smaller cage here. So his point fighting style, that being on the outside, he doesn't knock anybody out. So Gerald Meerschaert is probably safe here. This is not even Ian Heinisch level power striking. So yes, Gerald sub, do it out of his ass, round 3-2. Let's go, Daz. I'm going to throw down on that. Plus 460 compared to a plus 300. If you guys got FanDuel and DraftKings, run to FanDuel right now because I'm throwing it down live.
This fight reminds me of, and it's not just because I always used to mix up Jotko and Kroylov, but this fight really reminds me of Kroylov and Paul Craig just a couple weeks ago in terms of what you expect somebody to do and what you want somebody to do. Like, oh, I'm going to stay to the outside. I'm going to use my striking. I'm going to do what I usually do. And then they kind of fall into what, the plus 400 submission we see, we seem to find. So, yeah, this fight's a pure stay away from me in terms of everything else other than a Gerald Meerschaert.
Only reason I don't even see somebody can go Jotko just because he's not a big hitter. Even though he's mobile and he likes to point fight, he's not hard to really hit. He's not hard to get to at all. And he's not a great grappler. He's not very physical. He doesn't hit really hard. He's not even really durable. And you got a guy who's limited, but still probably more durable, physically stronger, might even be the better athlete overall. How do you pick Jotko? Like, him winning would just be completely out of left field.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys in the chat.
Seriously. Keep you guys going.
Please let us know who your best bets are for the card because we can always use some help. We'll take it from anywhere. We're just trying to beat the bookies. And
full conversation, boys.
If you guys are having a good time here, make sure you throw a like on the video. Subscribe to our channel. We're trying to fight our way up to 200 here, piece by piece. Black Jordan Breen on Twitter. Make sure you throw him a follow. And damn, let's keep it moving along. We got our next fight here, and this one, I mean, might even be a quicker breakdown than our previous fight. We got a redux from last week. Got canceled last second. Alexander Romanov versus Chase Sherman.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, they probably.
All right, I'm laying 2,000 units. On Alexander Romanov. No, listen, at the end of the day, like, seriously, I mean, grandma's couch cushion the tiniest little bit on Chase Sherman because we just saw it last week with Dean Barry. You don't have to fucking win. eye poke, nut shot. I don't know. His grandma runs in, starts streaking, and he gets disqualified. It doesn't really matter. At plus 920, like, you might as well give it a go. Thanks so much for liking and subscribing, man. Tell your friends, tell everybody. I really appreciate that. But seriously, Romanov probably gets it done. Chase Sherman literally finessed the UFC for a new contract. And yeah, but I don't know. I'm taking grandma's couch cushion money, and I might throw a little tiny, $5 on Chase Sherman.
Chase Sherman is whoever his manager is, or if he does his management, the dude's a genius. He played the UFC to extend his career and get money. And at the end of the day, that's what you're trying to do. Get money, get paid, build your brand, and extending yourself with the UFC helps him do that. I don't see how he wins this fight. He's never really ever beaten anybody good. So if Romanov loses this fight, you can essentially write him off as a potential contender. I don't want to hear he's experienced, this is a good veteran loss. No. He loses this fight, he's no longer considered a potential contender at heavyweight. So Sherman's he just shows up to me, it seems like he shows up for a paycheck at this point. And he's a good enough fighter, an experienced enough fighter to not take too much damage. Even when he's getting beaten up, he's not really getting beaten up. But he just seems like he's there to get his name out there and to make some quick money. And that's about all he is at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, even the under 1.5 rounds is minus 320. So again, you anything you might like to play on this fight is certainly going to have to be in terms of fading a narrative. Yeah, Liam, thanks for hopping in, buddy.
I threw a little $5 on the Mike Jackson money line. Let's go. We had a party.
So jealous.
Yeah,
poor
just
Ike
a little bit.
Villanueva got smacked.
Poor guy. But so that'll bring us on to our next fight here. We got Daniel da Silva Lacerda versus Francisco Figueiredo, brother of the God of War. I mean, just watching him, you would never realize it, honestly. The guy couldn't even finish Malcolm Gordon or our buddy Jerome Rivera.
He couldn't beat Malcolm Gordon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so listen, I mean, Daniel da Silva Lacerda had a bit of an impressive first round against Jeff Molina before ultimately kind of succumbing to the gas tank. And so then, Francisco Figueiredo, talk about gas tank issues on the regional scene, has a draw because of how badly he gasses out. In the UFC, gasses out badly in each of his fights. You just can't trust this guy as far as anything goes. And I think Lacerda is a bit more explosive. He's got all finishes in his career, whether by loss or by win. And I just don't think that Figueiredo with his, I do think he has a high level submission game, but like, as far as regional talent goes, I don't think he's going to be out here submitting high level grapplers like Lacerda in the UFC himself. So
yeah. Can I ask you a question really quick?
Yeah.
Sure.
Because like people, sometimes when people used to get on me about my picks, I'm like, I can get a pick wrong, but if you listen to my breakdown, the fight went the way, whether it was for this guy or for this guy, the fight went the way I called it.
Yeah.
But my main concern is like, I stopped looking at fighters so much now. I started really trying to get a better feel of their camps, especially when you have guys who have constant cardio issues or you don't see a progression as far as their technique. Because like if you have a cardio issue, let's just say inherently you have bad cardio, why do I still have you fighting from 0 to 60 in the first round? How am I not teaching you how to defend yourself and work in certain spots or get to certain spots easier so that you can maintain that energy? Like, do you guys just look at the fighter in their history, or do you start looking at like tendencies? Because at a certain point, the fighter is a fighter. They have their strengths, their weaknesses. It's the camp's jobs to minimize weaknesses and maximize strengths. And when the guy has the same issue at the regional level and then has it at the higher level, it just can't be just him. He's paying someone to address these things, and that person's not. So do you take into account the camp or the lack of growth you've seen in a person's game as attributed to a camp? Because my whole thing is, what are they doing to get this person better? He's the same fighter he was when he came in the UFC in 2019. That's inexcusable.
Yeah, it's honestly the best way I think I can answer that question is to the best of our ability. I try to amass all of it. You want to take fighter tendencies, you want to take the gym stuff, you want to take the mental stuff, you want to take the IG capping, you want to take what you see on tape. I try to take as much as I can. and on fights like this, honestly, where you haven't seen all of Francisco Figueiredo's jungle fights, like you could just sit there and watch Marlon Chito Vera rise through the ranks of the UFC. You haven't seen all of Daniel Lacerda's random regional fights. But what I have seen from Daniel Lacerda is fairly, he's super wild, man. He's gonna crash forward. He's aggressive. He's got wild spinning attacks, right? He's super slippery. He backpacks Jeff Molina super quick. And honestly, if he puts Francisco Figueiredo in that kind of position, Figueiredo is gonna, I don't know if he necessarily gives up the sub, I don't believe he's been subbed before. He has been subbed once, which would have been a long time ago. So he may sub Figueiredo, whereas, because again, Daniel De Silva, all his wins have come by finish. At the end of the day, I just kind of like De Silva money line for the same reason I said to you last week that I liked Sergey. Because at the end of the day, if you don't like a fighter and you see enough holes in their game, I really don't like Dwight Grant. And I said to you early in the week, I'm like, coin flip, I don't care who it is, I'm taking a coin flip against Dwight Grant anytime. So at minus 125, basically coin flip, I kind of feel comfortable as long as it's literally not Jerome Rivera. You know what I mean? Like, I feel fairly comfortable taking a coin flip essentially on somebody that's, the younger prospect here. That's not Francisco Figueiredo. Why not build up this 25-year-old kid using Figueiredo's name? And I can get it at basically even money. I almost kind of like it for like 1.2 units, like to be crazy. Like sometimes you gotta be bold.
I like Daniel De Silva Lacerda. I just think he's more explosive. He's 7 years younger. Schwan, where are you at on this?
It just looks like a showcase fight. It looks like you said, like, here's a guy who has some name value, who's good enough and dangerous enough to make it an exciting fight, to put some drama, but it's clear that he has this huge hole as far as his durability when he gets tired and his ability to maintain a pace. He attacks it. It seems like it's just the perfect setup fight because it should be, you have a guy who's a known finisher against a guy who puts himself, whether he's been finished a lot or not, when you get tired, you put yourself in position to be finished. So you put those two together, usually you end up having a guy getting a fairly dynamic submission or maybe some tremendous turn of the fight where he just starts laying a beating and stops somebody. It just seems like a showcase fight to me. It doesn't seem like a fight that's made with a good interest in the favor of seeing a good fight where it's a good matchup. It's literally, this guy's ascending. He's younger. He's exciting. He's a finisher. The UFC loves finishers. And we're putting him with this guy who's got a name, who's had some wins outside of the UFC, who gets tired and is subject to be finished.
Yeah, and to your point, if Lacerda can't get the win or can't get the finish, like you're gonna see that he's maybe not UFC caliber because Francisco Figueiredo is that guy that's kind of on the borderline and here because of his brother. So you kind of get to it's a good litmus test for Daniel Lacerda, which makes me honestly also kind of like, which again I need to be a little bit firm about this because last week I loved the fight, the main event not going the distance, right? I mean, how many times did I say that? This fight under 2.5 minus 105 on DraftKings.
Ooh, okay.
So obviously they kind of feel that this fight isn't going to go the distance. I kind of on FanDuel it's minus 102. So yeah, I mean it's very possible this fight doesn't even get to round 2. So why not take a stab on basically even money on that, saying 50% chance it doesn't go to the distance. Basically, I kind of like that.
Yeah. So now we have a fight here. Gabe Green versus Johann Lainez. Green at minus 135. Johann plus 115. I don't have any super strong feelings here. I just know I'm upset I missed out at Gabe Green plus money.
He was plus money?
Yeah. I mean,
where?
I don't know.
When?
I don't know if
How?
on FanDuel DraftKings, but that's the general trend I've been seeing is, the line kind of flipped here. And I do agree with the general idea behind it. I just can't find myself throwing chalk money now on Gabe Green, where like he's shown to have that punching bag tendency if he's facing the right guy. And someone like Johann, he's going to be throwing heavy that first round, and he's going to be connecting. So like I'm basically gambling like, what's the chin of Gabe Green going to look like here as a guy that does have 2 first-round knockouts on his record? So yeah, I mean, he survived against Daniel Rodriguez, but Rodriguez not the kind of guy that really sells out in his striking. He's much more in control, the volume game, especially at that stage in his career, as he was first really getting established in the UFC. Now, Gabe Green, like he survived Phil Rowe. He fights a great game plan. The gas tank holds up. I just, I mean, you're banking on a lot on a guy that really relies on his power in Johann Lainez, and I'm not here to take Green. Yeah. Oh my goodness. And Nick Alexander. Yeah. Let's bring this up. The heart attack, the heart problems, Gabe Green. I mean, like,
I didn't even hear about that.
Yeah. Apparently that's why he's been out for so long since the Phil Rowe fight. The line just keeps going back and forth. And
right.
Yeah. There's no reason for me to want to have money on this fight. Guru, did you find your degenerate way one way or the other?
No, listen. So for me, I think I found a few other degenerate plays. I think I've had some strong takes. I like Gabe Green here. I'm picking Gabe Green here. I'm not betting Gabe Green here. I don't really see a need to. Like I said, I've kind of have some spots elsewhere. You see somebody like Lioness, and I wasn't like super fucking thrilled watching his tape. There was nothing. He's a technical striker. He really likes his step in jab. He's got a relatively high output because he's just constantly throwing caution to the wind. He likes to throw his hooks over the top, and he's just a very stand and bang kind of fighter. But the negatives are quite clear too, right? He keeps his hands kind of low, and he doesn't bring them back up to his head when he's striking, and he's got fairly questionable cardio because he's constantly throwing caution to the wind, and he's not the same kind of reckless that a Daniel Lacerda is. So that's kind of this cool, interesting thing about MMA is like we can say that they're both reckless, but in a different way. I like Johann. He's kind of more precise with his striking in that respect. But Gabe Green, as you've seen, beat somebody like Phil Rowe, weather that storm. I was just thinking like, oh, Phil Rowe versus Johann Lainez, that'd be a really interesting fight. Like, that'd be a good fight. I think that'd be an interesting fight. I think I would pick Phil Rowe in that fight. So, I really do think I like Gabe Green here. But, apparently, I'd like to – I don't know anything about the heart issues. I really like to think that between his own personal doctors and UFC doctors and everything else going on in 2022 that he is medically cleared and he's fine. But, you really don't know. And I don't necessarily, like I said, need to risk hard-earned money on it. I'll be picking Gabe Green, and I do expect him to win. But I don't know. I didn't really see any props or anything on it because I don't know. I can't really discern whether it's going to be a finish or not. The guy seems to be – this guy is kill or be killed. So we haven't seen Gabe Green.
He's only been killed so far in his MMA career. 8-0.
Yeah, no. He's got the one loss in his amateur. He's got a rear naked chokes loss.
All right.
Yeah, no, but to your point, that's fine. So, listen, they got the fight to go the distance, plus 180, yes, minus 250, no, which is insane. So that's already high. There's really nothing I'm looking for. I'm just kind of looking forward to learn about this fight. I talked about it too much. Schwan, what do you got to say?
I'd probably say I have to favor the power puncher. Johann, I don't know if he's really technical. Like, he's one of those guys who's technical in how he throws something, but he's not technical in his defensive responsibility. And so that means that he's a guy who likes to throw volume. That means he's going to be there to be hit. I don't care how defensively sound you are. When you throw volume, you're going to get cracked back. Ask Volkanovski, ask Max Holloway, ask anybody. When you put volume out, you serve yourself up for a certain amount of punishment. Sometimes it's easy to navigate when you're facing a lesser power puncher. When you're facing an established power puncher, it becomes a little bit harder because, as we saw with Max Holloway with Dustin Poirier, you're used to your volume overwhelming somebody, and when you have a guy who hits 2 or 3 times harder than you, every shot they hit basically undoes the work of the 5 or 6 shots you landed. My only concern with Green is, one, the heart problem, because you could be medically cleared, but if the fight gets a little bit grueling or a little bit tough, does he shut down? because it's a person who's had multiple heart surgeries, and I've never been to fight, like a professional fight, so I can't speak to that in regards. But there's times when I've been sparring, and it's like you start feeling a little weird, and it's like, well, is this really worth me making that extra push? Because if I push through, I could just be fine. But what if I push through and it's too much? In a sparring match, they'll just back off you. In a fight, you kind of back off or fold up, and they're just going to tee off on you. But and my second concern is just he's a power puncher, but power punchers, when they move up to the UFC level, don't always translate that power. Being a power puncher at a regional level is not the same as being a legitimate big organization power puncher. So even though on paper, it should work to his favor because he's facing a guy who's going to be there for him to hit, who's not defensively sound and not really a slickster. I don't know that his power translates. I'd probably say I have to favor him just giving it on paper. But as a person who's had health problems himself, you roll an ankle and you don't completely trust that ankle.
Yeah.
So you have a heart issue. How much of a pace are you willing to push?
I definitely want to see some weigh-ins. Weigh-ins. So again, it's like for a guy that hasn't made his UFC debut yet, I want to see him in his first UFC weigh-ins. I want to see his energy, how he faces off, right? Like all that kind of stuff. And then you got to consider octagon jitters, small cage, this and that. I think a small cage may actually benefit Johann in terms of forcing the action.
Yeah.
So I'm certainly interested to see this fight and not very interested to bet it. So.
Yeah. So
I was waiting for TV to segue to our next one.
Yeah. So Natan Levy versus Mike Breeden.
Dude, this one is like sketches me out, man. Mike Breeden, like I didn't know if I'm missing something, but like he just does not. Like I'm watching his FAC tape, like he just doesn't seem UFC caliber. Like there's nothing super exciting about him. He's just like your typical mixed martial artist. Like he's fairly martial arty. Like he's well-rounded in the different things.
I think it comes down to he's one of those classic guys. He got the Contender Series call. He loses on Contender Series.
Right.
Oh no, Alexander Hernandez's opponent dropped out the week of the fight. I wonder if we can call anyone that's going to be ready and like, willing to fight on, less than a week notice against a semi top 15 guy in Alexander Hernandez. Well, guess what? Mike Breeden took that call, said yes. Now he's getting his second UFC fight.
Right.
I still don't think it goes that well for him facing someone that earned his way to the show through Contender Series and then had a competitive first fight against what we've now seen as a high-level grappler in Rafa Garcia. So, yeah, I mean, give me Natan Levy here, but at minus 195, that's not something I'm rushing to play or will even probably have on my bet sheet, but, like, I'm circling him heavy. Like, it's
and especially I'm definitely picking him to win, but the reason you're not betting him and I'm not betting him is he is way too hittable when he throws. He keeps his hand down by his side. He has questionable cardio. He's got questionable fight IQ. He's going for judo throws against Rafa Garcia, but like, dude, you don't practice those. That's not what you are trained in. Like he's just throwing shit. Like it's suspect, but Natan Levy, the karate guy, is actually, fairly good at jiu-jitsu. It's actually where he's better. And, I think that he really can pose a problem for Mike Breeden, who, who himself is not afraid to lose a fight at this point in his career, has gotten choked out on the amateur level. So he might suffer his second UFC loss this weekend.
Yeah, having already lost, I think sometimes makes it better for you when you go to a big organization because you don't have that pressure. There's already a certain amount of pressure taken off you because you're not coming off that big win streak or you've never been unbeaten. You're a potential star. You just get to come in and do what you do and see how it holds up. Unfortunately, I don't have a big take on this fight just because of the nature of the fight. People fall out and they bring in guys for fights, in some cases who might not even really be UFC caliber. And so you're just kind of throwing something at the wall and see what sticks. Like I said, Breeden's a tough guy, but he's not particularly athletic. He's not particularly skilled, and there doesn't even seem to be a real structure to how he fights. He could win.
Right? It was so disorganized. I didn't understand what no real game. He's just
there's no rhyme or reason
doing things. Yes. I was wondering why I was so confused by what I was watching. It's because he's not really fighting with any specific intent. He's just fighting.
some people think that's a style, and sometimes it is, but there's not. I don't think there's a method to his madness. None of the stuff he's doing is setting up something else. He's just being wild and trying to not have a pattern. But even being wild, you have a pattern. And once again, that takes a lot of energy that most guys can't maintain. There's a reason why people don't fight wild, because it takes a lot of energy to do so. And once you burn through that initial energy, now you have to lean on your base skills. He doesn't have a lot of them, nor does he have punching power, great athleticism. So I admire his courage. I admire his creativity. He gives the fans their dollars worth, their money's worth, but he's not a very good fighter. And the only reason he wins his fight is just because he comes out, balls the ball, and maybe catches this guy early. There's not any sustainable success in his fighting style. Not physically as far as his talents, not mentally as far as his IQ, not technically as far as his skills.
Okay, so maybe fight doesn't go the distance, plus 110.
Yeah, I could see him getting the other guy out early or just running into something big, because the guy with a karate background, they manage distance really well, and you come in too wild, you just run into a shot, and that's it.
And he loves the subs, so club and sub too. Yeah, plus 110 for fight not go the distance. Like Breeden just could easily scrounge his way out of there, man. And Natan Levy could very well look for his way to capitalize it and earn himself an emphatic UFC win.
And that'll bring us right along to our next one. We got
no touching.
Gina Mazzani versus Shanna Young.
Touching.
And this is once again based on the line that we're saying that, because honestly, like, Gina Mazzani should be favored. She's a better fighter. She has a distinct edge in the grappling department, and also just overall with the size. I know I got bantamweight up there, but I mean we're actually in the flyweight here. Mazzani dropped down. Shanna Young not fighting Macy Chasson on short notice anymore, so she's back down, flyweight, as we say. So yeah, I mean, ultimately Mazzani, she should have a bit of advantage, but yeah, I mean, that gas tank, you hate to see it. The stand-up game, yeah, it was great against Rachel Ostovich, but yeah, we've seen her really struggle from distance in the past, and I don't think that's necessarily getting better at Glory MMA, where, yeah, she's working that wrestling, but she doesn't have that lifelong wrestling cardio. So you see her just like dead on the stool in multiple fights, not even just the Cachoeira fight, but she just doesn't look great. I mean, even in the Ostovich fight, she's looking.
That's an excellent point you made right there. A lot of people, when they start thinking, "Oh, I'll just work on my striking more. I'll just work on my grappling more," everything comes with a price when you exchange it. It's like a kid saying, "I want to shoot more." Well, to shoot and shoot well, take a different kind of cardio. When you're used to taking 2 shots a game, and then we ramp you up to 17, whole different world. Especially when they're trying to stop you. If you're developing your wrestling, you don't pick up that wrestling conditioning, whether it's horsepower or it's cardio. That doesn't come overnight. That doesn't come into 2 fight camps. That don't come to 3. That's a lifelong of experience. They built that up. You don't build that up over a year or 2 years. That takes time. And that's even when you're able to physically dominate, which Mazzani isn't always able to do. At this weight class, maybe, but that's a very good point. Just because she's working on her wrestling doesn't mean you're going to see immediate long-term results, because she doesn't, A, have it down technically, and B, her body's not conditioned for it like that.
But to benefit from, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. The positive for Mazzani in this fight is that she doesn't have zombie girl Priscilla Cachoeira walking towards her again, walking her down. She doesn't have the crazy raging panda, throwing crazy shit at her to start the fight. She's got somebody here in Shanna Young who's, I don't know, fairly middling in what she does here. And this is her first UFC fight at flyweight. Her last 2 were at bantamweight, Stephanie Egger and Macy Chasson. So she's finally coming back to her natural weight class where she fought all of her Invicta fights at. But even still, she has, actually interesting, she is also a Dana White Contender Series fighter, is Shanna Young. She lost on Dana White Contender Series to Sarah Alpar at bantamweight. So she, again, is really, she's lost to Lisa Versosa at
that's a bad loss.
Bantamweight.
A bad loss.
She lost to Miranda Maverick, round 1 rear naked choke at flyweight. So she, and then comes into the UFC off a decision win against an 8-4 whoever. and is yet to string together a win, and I'm not sure that she's going to get one here.
Yeah, the biggest thing, Mazzani's biggest thing is Mazzani has always been a physical tough fighter. And that's been enough to keep her in fights because she's never been particularly skilled. I'm not saying she can't fight at all, but her advantages in physicality, she never.
I can't fight at all. Gina can fight. I can't fight at all. Gina can fight.
She hasn't maximized them, and she's gotten better, but she's still, for a person who's fought as much as she has, she's still fairly raw technically on the feet, defensively, counters, her wrestling, her grappling. It's still really raw. You don't see her and see like, oh, this is the top 15 skill set. At least I haven't. Her advantage against Shanna Young isn't very physical. Young isn't very fast. She's not very powerful. She has the karate techniques. She doesn't telegraph her shots. She moves fairly well. But when she fights like somebody who spars people who, when she kicks them, they back off. They respect her power and her speed. In the UFC, when she's kicked people, they've grabbed her leg and taken her down. When she's punched people, they punched her right back. When they've taken her down or pushed her against the fence, she's done the technically correct move, but she's never had the horsepower to just rip through and finish. And part of technique is not just the technique; it's your physicality and athleticism and executing it. Otherwise, I could fight like Floyd Mayweather. Part of it is the technique and the IQ. Some of it is the athletic talent and the physicality. Shanna Young does not have physicality or athleticism. And fighting at bantamweight, if she was fighting another girl who hadn't fought at bantamweight, she might have had an advantage because she's used to facing bigger, more physical girls. But Gina Mazzani used to fight at bantamweight. And even though she got outclassed, she was never really bullied. So I expect her to kind of have her way with Young, unless Young's made some decided changes in how she fights. That side kick, high kick thing isn't going to work. She needs a jab, which I haven't seen any sighting of.
Wow. Well said.
Yeah, I mean, listen,
nothing.
Yeah, that takes it away, folks. But I mean, please don't play Gina Mazzani at that type of line. But yeah, she's probably got this one in the bag.
If she doesn't, she really needs to look into quitting. Like there's some losses you shouldn't have. The loss to Ostovich would have been bad. That maintained, but losing to Shanna Young, no. That no offense to her, but that should not happen.
Oh God, yeah. I mean that, like you said, I mean that's gotta make you question just about everything you've worked for up to that point. If that's how it ends up going for you. Yeah. I mean, so here we go, guys. I mean, we're at our opener here. We've got Tatsuro Tayara versus Carlos Candelario. This fight has
fucking
build
sick.
up written all over it.
Dude, you know what's crazy again? You sent it to me earlier in the week. You're like, oh, all favorites are created equal, and you'd sent me Tatsutara and you'd sent me Andre Feely, and I'm like, oh yeah, who's this guy? Blah, blah, blah. And then I do the
you're
tape.
Gonna call me out like that.
I do the tape. Listen, you hadn't done tape yet. Whatever. We don't know who this guy is. We don't pay attention to Japanese MMA in that respect. But we do the tape. I watched his last 4 fights. I'm taking it with a grain of salt in terms of competition. But again, at least in his last 4 fights, dude's records 20, 24-13, 38-18, 12-5, 6-2. Dude's winning these fights, homie. He goes to decision for 1, has 3 straight wins, all by first round submission. Dude is a beast. I don't see weaknesses really anywhere, like at all. So, like, I mean, the dude's a savage. Carlos Candelario, man, is a Dana White Contender Series guy, right? So he's got an interesting story himself. He was on the first season of Dana White Contender Series, wins, but doesn't get the contract because it was like the first series, and they were much more strict. They had Kyler Phillips on that card. They gave out contracts, so he didn't get one. He kind of doesn't have too many fights. Maybe he was in kind of a fight purgatory kind of deal. Really only has 1 fight. He's got the CES fight last year and then gets another Dana White Contender Series chance. Fights in one of the closest fights you could ever really watch against Victor Altamirano. And that's because of the way Carlos fights in terms of putting this pressure on in round 1 and then really kind of fading and letting his opponent start to dictate the pace if he doesn't get his way. And I just think that he's got too many holes in terms of the giving up takedowns and just on the feet in general. He's very boxing heavy, and he likes to use his calf kick. But yeah, I just think, like you said in much less words, that I think this is a showcase for Tatsuro Tayara. What do you think? What do you think, Juan?
It seems like he's got a better talent. He seems like he's got a better camp. I hate to be this guy, but I hate when I see fighters with clear limitations or path to victory, and at no point do you see any sort of strategic or technical development to even make it harder to get to that path. It's like the path is right there. You just got to take it. Could you like put some brush over it? Could you put a guard dog by it? Could you do something that gives this person a better chance to compete in the fights? Because when you fight in mixed martial arts, this is the thing that people forget, and I have to get on my soapbox. The trainer, the coach, even somebody like me, I could do this for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. I have all the time in the world. I'm not getting my brains beat out. The fighter has, on average, most fighters really are only good for 2 to 5 years. He doesn't have an endless amount of opportunities to get this right. And if he can't win the fight, you at least need to have the fighter trained well enough, because you could lose a fight, out grappled, choked out, out hustled, or you could lose the fight, broken arm, knocked out at a highlight reel level. And some of these guys, the beatings they take are basically knocking out whatever world class or whatever talent they have. They're getting it beaten out of them on the way through regional, all the way till they finally get to UFC, and then the rest of it gets knocked out, and you see guys decline very quickly. And in the case of let me say his name, Carlos, from what I've seen, he hasn't gotten any better. He has the same approach that guarantees him a certain amount of success, but ultimately leads to more damage and more mileage on him than necessary. So it is a showcase fight because you have the better talent, the guy who's got the money behind him, the guy who's a more dynamic fighter, against a guy who, even though he's experienced and gritty, has shown clear limitations, not just in technique, but in cardio and in defense. That's a really bad recipe. Could he win it? Yeah, he's wild. He'll go for it. He'll take chances. But guys like that are very hit and miss. They'll win 2 in a row and they'll lose 5 in a row, and then pull out a big upset and then lose 4 in a row, and then win 2 in a row. There's no sort of consistency. You can't consistently perform at high levels with grit and will and crazy technique. That just doesn't work. And that seems to be all they've armed him with. So it's like, it's obviously a showcase fight, but it's an example of the bigger problem in mixed martial arts, because you count how many times on this card have we said a guy, great start, gas is halfway through. Great start, gas is halfway through. We said that about like 7 fighters. How the hell are they not adjusting their strategy or their approach so that you can at least manage and we can wipe that out as a weakness in your game? And these are guys with, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 fights, and they're still doing it. So it's a showcase fight for my answer, but it's an example of the biggest issue in mixed martial arts, where guys are not doing their job preparing their fighters and developing them appropriately, so that a guy who lost by gassing out in 2018 should not still be losing by gassing out in 2022. Something should have changed.
Definitely.
Sorry.
You're not wrong. No, you're not wrong. It obviously, listen, you're a coach, you're an analyst. Those kind of when you see that kind of glaring hole and you don't make the adjustment, it infuriates you. So
go through y'all's next 3 cards and see how many times you hear a guy starts out well but gasses, or is great with a lead but can't come back. He's a 7, 15 fight veteran, and he's still having that issue. Like that doesn't seem weird to you? That is a guy who doesn't be in the NBA and can't shoot for 7 years and still in the NBA. That's not how that works.
No, it's not ideal.
So just think about it next time. Next time you'll be like, we keep on coming with the same description. We change the name, but it's the same description. Can't fight off his back, gets tired, quits when he gets hit. So why doesn't he have better defense? Why doesn't he know how to grapple better? Why aren't you teaching him skills to slow down the game so he doesn't get so tired? Just pay attention to that as you go on, and you'll start noticing the trend.
Schwan, man, short notice, up 2 weight classes. The cardio did not, there was no chink in the cardio at all, man. You went for 2 hours, no problem, buddy. Thank you so much.
That's what the ladies know me for.
Oh, you and Colby Covington.
Oh God! never thought my name would be mentioned in the same sentence as that dude.
Yes, the bedroom cardio. Seriously, Schwan, thanks so much for coming.
No, man. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Yeah. I love the fact that y'all actually, a lot of people, they kind of cover, they pick and choose. I admire the dedication of y'all actually studying and going through some of these fights where, let's be honest, they're not important fights of the division. Most of them are going to be good fights, but y'all are professionals. You'll make sure you cover all the bases, and not everybody does that. So I commend y'all. Very well produced show. Great, friendly guys. If you see them online, talk to them. They're fun to engage with. They'll answer questions. They'll go back and forth with you. They're looking for the engagement, so reach out to them. I know I always do. I just thank y'all for letting me be part of the show. Thank you very much for coming to me.
Schwan, you're part of this. You're a staple of the show, man. You were one of our first guests ever, really, and it's
and our most frequent.
Yeah, well, I know. It's unfortunate that it took this long to get you in on 2022, man. But we're so blessed to have you.
No, that was my fault.
Listen,
it's all good, man. We're happy to have you.
Listen, not for nothing, we have UFC 274 next week. Charles Oliveira versus Justin Gaethje, and we are bringing our guy, all of our friend Clint from Die Hard MMA. We're bringing him on the show.
Big gun.
Break down. We're bringing in the big guns for the big podcast. Help break it down. You can follow my guy at Black Jordan Breen on Twitter. You can follow me at Guru Scouting MMA on Twitter. Verdict, Instagram, and Tapology. Yo, if you're not using that Verdict app, go use that. That thing is awesome. So, and you can also follow my unbelievable co-host working his ass off at TB Scouting MMA.
Look at that handsome bastard. Look at that handsome
that beard.
I hate him.
Beard. Yeah, so very handsome guy. Make sure
that's why I have the shadows. I don't want to have my beard compared to his, so I keep it real dark. Yeah. I'm not ready for that.
Keep it covered, Schwan. We had you here for your advice, buddy, not for the beauty contest.
Fair enough.
Dude, hey, shout out Nick. Hell yeah, man. Schwan is the best, man. Like we said, most frequent. I think he's been on like damn near 4 times at this point. So
I think so. I think 4. Clint's coming for his 3rd next week. So
hey, I gotta stay one ahead of him.
That's right. Yes, no. You will have our next invite out of the 2.
All right then. You guys have a great night. Thank you so much. Anytime y'all need me, you know where to find me.
Awesome, dude. Thanks so much for fitting us into your busy schedule, buddy. I really appreciate it.
All right, man. Y'all take it easy.
Everybody, thank you all the listeners for fitting us into your busy schedules. Make sure you tune in next week for that sick pay-per-view and share this around, send some likes, and send some love to somebody who needs it.
You know how good these guys are? Even when I'm not on the show, I still listen to the show. Like I listen to it regularly. So most people I go on the show, I'll listen to it. If I'm not on the show, I'm like, I'm very picky with what I listen to because I don't have a lot of time. These guys always give you quality content. Everybody should support it.
Yeah, listen, I'll be honest. If I'm listening to my own podcast or other podcasts, I'll Apple Podcast and I'll listen on 1.25 speed, 1.5 speed. Like that's not disrespectful at all. Listen to us on 1.25 speed. Listen to us on 1.5 speed. Just get through it and listen to the whole thing. Seriously, because we have good content throughout. It's just yeah.
Hell yeah!
Check in
like
next
and
week
subscribe, people. Catch you next week.
All right, you guys take it easy.